making the final mile your competitive advantage. My name is Caprice Crawford, and I'm the Education Manager here at the Home Furnishings Association, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Now, before we get started, I'd like to go over the basics for today's session. This webinar will be recorded, and all attendees will receive a follow-up email by this time tomorrow on how to access the recording. Now, as you heard when you joined, you are in listen-only mode. This means that all attendees except me and our speaker are muted. Now, although we can't hear you, we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation using the chat box you see on your webinar control panel. Now, this control panel usually pops up on the right-hand side of your screen when you joined. Now, only organizers can see your questions, so I will be monitoring them as the webinar progresses, and our speaker will address all questions at the end of the presentation. Now, it is our pleasure to have Patrick Cory, former CEO and managing partner of Cory Home Delivery Services, which was his family's business for over 8 decades. Now, in February of 2019, JB Hunt acquired Cory, and Patrick currently serves as senior consultant for JB Hunt Final Mile. Thank you for being here today, Patrick. I hope your voice holds up for you. Are you ready to get started?
I am ready, Caprice. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. As luck would have it today, my voice is not doing well. Had a little bit of a cough, and this is the end result of that cough. So please forgive me if my voice isn't as clear and as strong as it should be. I really appreciate you joining me today. I hope that when you leave this seminar, you're able to walk away with some very clear ideas and visions of what you expect from your home delivery operation, or something that you can implement and improve in your home delivery operation. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to keep it very high level. I encourage you to ask questions on the computer, and Caprice will read those questions to me, and I'll be able to answer some of your questions. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So the first thing that you want to consider when you're looking at home delivery is, what are your end goals for home delivery? I'll give you a little bit of background about myself, just so you understand what my experience in home delivery was, and sort of how I came up with this idea of looking at the end result first and working backwards. As Caprice said, I was in the home delivery business for about the last almost 40 years, a little less than 40 years. I've been in every aspect of home delivery. I did warehousing. Worked in a warehouse, drove a truck, delivered to consumers directly, ran buildings, ran operations, ran accounts, prepped in deluxe furniture, opened and repaired in deluxe furniture before it went out, did every aspect of home delivery that you could imagine, up until including running a very large home delivery company before we sold to JB Hunt. We were the largest privately held home delivery company in the United States. We had 1,000 independent contractors and delivered about 2.5 million consumer deliveries per year right prior to our sale. So I've been in the business a long time and seen just about every kind of home delivery operation that you could imagine, whether it's in-house, whether it's done by the retailer with their own employees and their own trucks, whether it's outsourced, whether it's third-partied and it goes to a separate warehouse, in-the-box delivery, prep and deluxe, white glove, you name the delivery method, we've seen it, we've done it, and had various levels of success doing it over the years. So when you think about home delivery, the first thing you want to think about is, what is the end result of what you expect to get out of your home delivery operation? What is it that you want the consumer to feel? And that's a key word, feel. What do you want them to feel when the driver and the helper leave the customer's home and the delivery is completed? If you think about the investment that most retailers make in delivery, the investment is huge. It's stores, it's brick and mortar stores, it's inventory, it's lighting, it's the mood of the store, it's background music, it's baking cookies in the store, it's having coffee available to consumers. Think about the huge investment, training of the sales associates, location of the store, that is made in the presentation of the product to the consumer. And that's true online as well. It's the same effort that goes into selling online as it does going into a brick and mortar store. There's a huge amount of effort that goes into setting up a website and putting the product on there. We did a lot of business with Wayfair and Amazon back in the day. and I went to their offices and I saw the huge number of people they have working on their websites constantly, updating them and upgrading them. So it's a huge investment just to present the product to the consumer. So when you start thinking about it from that point of view, a consumer comes into a beautiful store in a very highly controlled environment, right? It's your store, it's your website. You're controlling the look, the feel, the way the salespeople look, the way the salespeople interact with the consumer. You're controlling every aspect of the experience that the consumer has from the moment they go on your website to the moment they walk into your store until they make the final decision to purchase the product. And then it has to get delivered to the consumer. So all of that money, time, effort, investment go into creating this consumer experience, excuse me, which is hopefully very, very positive and creates an image of your store that you're looking to create. Now the question becomes, how do we get the product to the consumer? And how do we do it in such a way that really the delivery of the product becomes an extension of the sales experience?
Hey,
How do
hey,
you look at the
Pat-
whole? Yes, go ahead.
Patrick. Hey, before you move on, we just launched our poll in trying to find out what some of the goals are.
Yes,
And
go ahead.
it looks like right now we've got almost 89% of everybody here is wants to have that ultimate customer experience and also making that delivery as inexpensive as possible. So
Ah, okay.
let's tell them how to do that.
Excellent, excellent. And it's funny because I'd like a Rolls Royce, but I want to pay a Toyota price for it. So
Exactly.
let's see if we can do that as well. But in all seriousness, I understand those are two competing goals, but not necessarily out of alignment. They can be in alignment, and it really comes down to the way you measure your expenses on home delivery, and I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. So the ultimate delivery experience is perfect because that's exactly what I'm about to get into. So what is the ultimate delivery experience? So what is that continuation of the consumer experience that happened in the store inside of your home? That really comes down to taking your home delivery business, which is a completely separate and different business from your retail side of the business, in the sense that you're now in the trucking and logistics business, not in the sales business per se, selling furniture, and looking at it in a new way. And the new way is, if you look at your delivery personnel, not as two people who can deliver a heavy product, but if you look at them as an extension of your sales force, that is a good way to start. That's a good way to start because that does create alignment of your two separate businesses, your retail business and your logistics business. So, of course, the technical side of, and we're going to talk about this, the technical side of how we handle the product and what happens to the product when it comes into your building, and do we outsource, do we use employee drivers, and et cetera, et cetera. We're going to talk about that. But regardless of how you deliver the furniture, third party, in-house, whatever, it really becomes critical that your entire mindset starts to look at delivery as an extension of the sales process and look at how you train, how you educate, and how you compensate your delivery teams. And really, in calling them delivery personnel is no longer adequate. Calling them your outside sales team becomes more appropriate. And really making sure that there's a symbiotic relationship between your sales force inside and your outside sales force, that the outside sales force success and the inside sales force success are aligned, combined, and, by the way, compensated. So if you have a great sales person, and that salesperson is your number one writer, and they do a great job and the customer loves them, they should be the most highly compensated person in your sales force, okay? The same thing with your best delivery driver. Your best delivery driver, who's got the highest completion rate, the lowest damage, the lowest returns, highest customer feedback, that should be your most highly compensated person in your organization. And there is no cheap way around it. Good people are going to cost you money, whether they're on a delivery truck or they're inside of your store. It's going to cost you a certain amount of money to make sure that you retain that person and you keep that person. Because at the end of the day, if you really look at the last thing the customer is going to experience, the delivery driver, believe it or not, probably has more of an impact on future sales than your sales associate inside the store. So the question then becomes, okay, now that we want to align our vision of our sales team for the inside sales team and our outside sales team, not delivery drivers, outside sales team. Now we want to align that. Well, the question becomes, how do we do that? Well, it's really a very simple question to answer. And that is, if you want the ultimate delivery experience, if you want to drive business back into your store, if you want to make sure that anything that happens, any feedback that happens on delivery is generally positive, you want to make sure that you train and educate your sales associates, your outside sales associates, the same way that you do with your inside sales associates. Forgive my cough today, please. So where does it begin? It begins with a uniform, and it begins with the condition of the truck. The truck is the first impression that the customer is going to have of your delivery. What does your truck look like? Is it logoed? Is the dashboard clean? Is the inside of the truck clean? Pads, tools, everything you need to make a delivery successful. Do the drivers have them? Are they updated? Do they know how to use them? Okay. What happens when a delivery driver pulls up in front of a home? From that moment forward, your customer is looking through her or his window, and they're looking at that delivery team. What's happening in that truck? Are they smoking? Are they spitting? Are they wearing a Yankees hat instead of a hat with your branded logo? When they get out of the truck and they walk behind the truck, are they putting a pad down on the ground so that when the furniture comes out on the truck, it hits a pad first, not the ground? How are they handling the box? Okay? So that's just the very first part. That's just the truck. What about the uniform? What kind of uniforms are they wearing? How are they presenting themselves? And what are you doing to prepare them to present themselves to the consumer? So at Cory, we used to do something called role playing. And role playing was very simple. We had a door frame, okay, that looked like a door of a home, okay. It was on wheels. It was actually on wheels. You could roll it around. And it looked like the door of a home. And we would have our delivery teams show up at the door. This is part of their role playing before they left in the morning. We would randomly pick 2 or 3 delivery teams, or we would go ahead and we would take the lowest scoring delivery teams, and we would have them do a role play in the morning, and all the other delivery teams would be watching. So they would come to the door, the fake door in our warehouse. The manager would be on the other side. They would knock on the door, and they would have to go through what they were going to do when they presented themselves to a consumer that morning with their first stop and their second stop and their third stop. And the first thing was, how did they look? How did they look? Were they neatly shaven? Were they wearing the correct uniform? Did they have clean shoes? Were their nails clean? I know it sounds silly, but when you want to make a presentation, you want to get into this level of detail. The other thing we used to do is have a little red carpet that they would carry, and they would lay it down in front of the door, and it would say thank you on it. Okay, and it was the red carpet experience that the delivery team would have. They would also have booties. They'd have rubberized booties that they would put on during the delivery, and they would have gloves that they would obviously, would wear during delivery if necessary. Sometimes it's not, but they would at least have their white gloves there during the delivery process, so they could present themselves at the door of the role playing with all of their equipment available and ready to go. So the first part is, how do you look? How does your mobile showroom, your delivery truck, how does it look? How do your drivers look? Okay, that's the first. You wouldn't let a sales associate walk on the floor of one of your showrooms with dirty jeans on, okay, or shorts that are greasy, or a T-shirt that says, Joe's barbecue on it. Well, why would you do that with your delivery teams? And who's inspecting it, by the way? You inspect what you expect. Who's inspecting this? Who is ensuring that at 5:30 in the morning that your delivery teams are ready to go? Well, that's your delivery manager, right? That's the standards and expectations that you set with your delivery manager. So the first part of this is how your delivery team looks. The second part is, how do they present themselves to the consumer? They knock on the door. Are they smiling? Do they introduce themselves, them and their partner? Do they talk about what's going to happen in the delivery process? Communication, the breakdown of communication, is one of the key areas that are going to cause delivery issues. Again, these are delivery drivers that are outside of your facility. They are driving down a road into a consumer's home. You don't have cameras there. You don't have a drone. You don't have people watching them. You don't really know what's going on. So it's outside of your controlled environment. So the best thing you can do is constant preparation and practice to prepare them for the delivery experience that you want your consumer to have. That is the most important thing that you can do. Constant preparation, constant role playing, constant practice. So they present themselves at the door. Are they smiling? Do they knock on the door? Do they introduce themselves? Do they say Mr. or Mrs. Jones, whatever the customer's name is? And are they communicating what the process is going to be through the entire delivery process? Now that starts with a 30-minute call ahead. You should be calling every customer, regardless whether they're asking for it or not, 30 minutes prior to delivery. And if you're using software, if you're using Dispatch Track or any other type of software, you should be using the text feature on a lot of those programs to also text the consumer 30 minutes ahead. Let them know the delivery is coming. That's the first part of communication. Okay? We're on our way. Just like Amazon does when you get an Amazon package dropped off to you. We're on our way. Okay? And if possible, and a lot of software programs can do this, having a photograph and name of the delivery team that's going to be coming to the door is also very helpful. If you guys, ladies, have ever seen SafeLight Autoglass, I think it's SafeLight. When you get a call from SafeLight, when they're sending a technician out to replace your windshield, they send the photograph and name of the person, the technician that's coming. When you get an Uber, you get a photograph and the name of the person that's coming. There's no reason we can't do that with the software that's available today. No reason we can't do that. So now you've communicated to your customer. Now you know that they know the delivery team is on the way. Now the driver's standing in front of the door. This is the critical part. How is he communicating with your customer? What is he saying? What is he not saying? What should he never say? And there's a list, and I can't get too deep into it now because I'd go over the hour. But there's a list of things that a driver should do in a home every time they enter a home, and there's a list of things they should never do. Okay? What's one of the things they should never do? You never ask to use the bathroom. Okay? You never ask to use a tool. You never ask for a drink of water. You don't ask a consumer for something that a driver should already have taken care of prior to delivery. What are the things that they should always do? They should always smile when the door is open. They should always introduce themselves. They should always walk through the area that they're going to deliver to prior to delivery so they make sure the area is clear. They should always communicate with the consumer exactly what they're going to be doing. Very simple. Sir, ma'am, we're here to deliver your sectional today. Can you please show me where it's going? They walk in, they show them where it's going. Me and my helper, John, are going to walk through here. We're going to set the sectional up here for you. We're going to lay it here. Is that okay with you? You're asking permission of the consumer every time you're in the home. Is it okay to do this? Is it okay to do that? Is it okay if I come through your front door with the sectional? If I place it here and set it up, does that work for you, ma'am? It sounds simple, but when the customer feels like they're in control, they're going to be a lot more comfortable with the delivery process than having somebody barge in there and just drop a piece of furniture off and run out the door. So that's really the first step. The first step is making sure your delivery teams are trained and they have the ability to communicate and look just like your inside sales team. Your outside sales team now looks, acts, and performs like your inside sales team. The second part of that, the most important part of making sure you have the ultimate delivery experience. The ultimate delivery experience comes down to, are you measuring in the home every aspect of their delivery? So we're going to get into that in a minute. Caprice, were there any more survey results or questions that you wanted me to review before we move on?
Well, why don't we ask everybody if they do if they are measuring their delivery.
Well, before we get into that, because we're gonna talk about what you're gonna measure
Okay,
next. But
perfect.
are there any other questions or follow up on the delivery experience and aligning your delivery experience with your sales experience? Any questions on that?
Let's take a look. Nope, I think we're good. Move on.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. So now you're talking about, okay, what is the ultimate delivery experience? And that now comes down to the second point, and that is really, what are you measuring? What are you trying to measure with this delivery experience? The first part is going to be the technical part. Everything in your organization, just like your sales team, everything that you do should be measured. From the moment the product comes into your dock to the moment it goes on the delivery truck until obviously the delivery is completed. And I'm going to focus now just on the delivery aspects of it. So on the delivery side of it, what do you want to measure? The first and most important thing is your completion rate, okay? And in very simple terms, how many pieces went out on the truck today and how many pieces were successfully delivered and were not returned same day, okay? That's called your first time completion rate. So if a delivery team went out with 50 pieces and they returned, 48 of the 50 pieces were delivered and they returned 2 pieces, okay, so what is your delivery rate on that? Your delivery success rate is about 96%. You had a 96% success rate. 96% means that 2 pieces of that product went out for a ride for no reason whatsoever. They went out, they were never delivered. For some reason, they had to be returned. Now, your cost of handling goes up. Your increase of risk of damaging the product goes up. Your dissatisfaction with the customer goes up because they didn't like it or they weren't home or something had occurred. So the first part is when you're looking at your completion rate and you're looking at your overall, you can look at number of pieces delivered and measure that, which is important. You can look at stops and measure that, successful stops. That's important. That's another way to measure and equally as important. And of course you can measure the reasons in your non-completion rate, the reasons why it wasn't delivered successfully. And this sounds simple, guys. What I'm saying to you sounds really simple, and ladies, but the reality is that we worked over the years, Cory worked with retailers, and I mean really large retailers, okay? Some of the biggest names in the industry, furniture, appliances, exercise equipment, etc., that didn't measure their completion rate, that didn't measure how many pieces came back on their trucks. That to me is mind-boggling. That to me is the most critical part. Because when you talk about expense of delivery, people only look at the cost of what it means for a truck to be on the road. Well, I'm sending a truck out, and that truck with driver, helper, insurance, fuel, workman's compensation, liability, blah, 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 blah. That truck is going to cost me $850 to send out on today. $900, okay, whatever the number is, $800, $1,000, whatever that number is. They're only looking at the pure cost. They're not looking at the associated cost is how many pieces did that delivery team bring me back today? How much profit margin have I lost on those pieces? How many dissatisfied customers now do I have to take care of because that delivery team did a bad job? When you look at your cost, looking at the pure cost of home delivery is one small aspect and not the most important aspect. The most important aspect is what is that delivery team really costing you in lost business? What is that delivery team really costing you in lost profits? What is it costing you in mishandled product and damaged product? That is much more important than what the delivery cost is on rolling a truck out. Because that's simple. That's simple to look at. The other costs are much harder to measure and could be much more impactful on your business. Because remember, every time a customer is dissatisfied, what happens? They go on Twitter, they go on Yelp, they go on these websites, and they start to complain about your company. And they start to say, it was a wonderful sales experience I had in the store, and the customer service people were lovely, and blah, blah, blah. But when I got the delivery, the damaged, a product came in, it was damaged, and the driver really couldn't help me, and I'm really unhappy, and now I'm frustrated, and I have anxiety because now I have to wait for another nightstand to come, or a dining room table, or sofa, or whatever it is. So they're costing you far more in lost potential business and damage than the actual cost of fueling up a truck and sending it on the road. And most retailers fail to understand that or fail to look at it. The best retailers in our industry measure everything that they do with the home delivery side of their business. And I mean everything. So when you're looking at your first measurement, which is completion rate, the second measurement that you really want to look at is you want to look at, okay, so I've completed 96% of my deliveries today, or 96 pieces got delivered, 96 percentile. 48 out of 50 pieces got delivered. What happened with those other 2 pieces? Why did those other 2 pieces fail to get delivered? Okay? And of course, you start to break down the reasons for that, but you do it in a very intelligent and a very thoughtful way. So it's not just, well, they were damaged. Okay? Well, why were they damaged? What happened? So was it customer dissatisfaction because of the type of product? In other words, did they get the wrong product? Was it customer dissatisfaction because it was damaged? Was it customer preference because they thought that the color was a light green and it was a dark green, even though they ordered the right piece? What were the reasons for the product being returned to your warehouse? So that we call non-productive deliveries. Okay, non-productive deliveries should be measured down to the piece, down to the reason, and that has to go all the way back to your warehouse. So when they talk about, and this moves in a little bit to the next topic that we have, which is product handling. But when you talk about where did the genesis of that delivery failure, where did it begin? Did it begin when the product came into the building and it wasn't inspected correctly? Did it begin because we sent the product out in a box and we never opened it? Okay, which is something we could talk about, opening the box ahead of time or delivering in the box and the cost benefit analysis of doing that. Did it begin because the driver didn't inspect it correctly? Did it begin because the driver didn't have the correct handling techniques and mishandled the product and dropped it? Did it begin because the consumer had false expectations of what to expect during the delivery process as far as the type of product they were receiving? You know, a product that comes with the little the wood that comes with the scarring and all of that. Was it a failure on the sales associate's part inside the store when they were educating the process to the consumer? Where was that failure? Because that failure is your true cost of home delivery. That failure, that hidden cost, is killing you. It's creating your need to discount that furniture and sell it through one of your clearance stores, or sell it at a discount on your floor, or do something with it that is going to cost you profit margin. Forget about the cost of sending out a delivery truck. That's easy to measure. That's easy to understand. That's easy to look at. The true cost of delivery, what's really eating your lunch, is the product that's being returned to your building and you have no idea why. And you have no idea where the root cause of that damage is. And that's something at Cory that we took very seriously, because we, as a third party, were responsible for that. We were responsible for that damage. Once we received it into one of our buildings, we were responsible for that damage. And if it didn't get delivered and the piece had to get discounted, we got charged back for that. So that became a critical component of our business, which was making sure that we had the right product handling, making sure that we were measuring everything that we did. So you have the measurement of non-productive delivery rates. Now you have the reasons why. Not at home, no fits, customer preference, damage, and you could go on and on. You could create 50 categories, okay? But you want to get as detailed as you possibly can on the reasons why, okay? The next component on measurement, okay, so now you're going to measure your completion rate. You're going to measure the number of pieces going out every day. You're going to measure any pieces that were not delivered, okay, and returned. And then if you get a survey call, a customer service call, a service call, and that happens within your window of liability, whatever you've set up for your warranty. So whether it's 3 days or 7 days or whatever, you tell the consumer you have 5 days or 7 days to call us. Okay, you want to measure that as well. You want to look at that as well. Okay, why did we not receive a phone call? And today, initially, right after the delivery, why did it take 3 days later for us to get a phone call? And today, that's pretty easy to manage, because that's one of those gray areas that if a consumer moves their sofa and they damage it because they moved it, not because your delivery team did it, and they damage the side of the sofa or the whatever, or the nightstand or the dresser, how do you control for that? How do you know that the driver didn't do that? Now, of course, there's a sign off on your sheet of paper that says, I'm receiving this delivery in excellent condition and I don't see any damage. But when a consumer calls, they're going to challenge that. And you know that you're going to have to do something to satisfy that customer. Of course, today, one of the things you want to measure, you want to look at, is if you invest in a good software program. Again, there's a bunch of them. Dispatch Track is one of them. I only say that because that was one of the ones that we use, but there's a lot of them. They're going to come with a handheld device that allows the delivery team to take a photograph of the product before they leave the home. Now, of course, you have to ask the consumer's permission to do that. But think about the power that you have. If you took a photo of the product was in excellent condition, and the customer calls in and says, oh yeah, there's a big scratch on the dining room table. You go back to that photograph, you see no scratch, and you say to the consumer, well, ma'am, sir, unfortunately, we can't honor this claim because we don't see a scratch in our photograph. So when it was delivered to you, it does look like it was in perfect condition. That is very simple to do, very easy to do. The other thing that a Dispatch Track type software will do, and the other measurement that we want to talk about, is your on-time performance. Today, with people working with the social media, with everything else that's going on, and people's ability to complain, and time limited, the most important thing that you can do to start your delivery off right is to be there on time. Now, I could go into a lot of, again, there's a lot we could talk about here, but I don't want to run over our time. But it really comes down to what is the time window that you want to give? Can you tighten up that time window as tightly as possible? Can you make it a 30-minute, 1 hour time window if needed, a 2 hour time window, 4 hour time window? What's realistic? And with the implementation of software, that will also help you tighten up that window, because good software beats a person routing a truck a million times to one. Okay, a good software program with the right algorithms, okay, from a legitimate company will help you route your truck efficiently and effectively, and takes things like traffic into consideration. So investing in a good software program to make sure that you're measuring your on-time performance is really critical, because if the driver is late, you've already started off on the wrong foot. You've already created a negative situation for a consumer. Excuse me, I'm drinking my hot tea there. So the first thing, that when you tell a consumer, we're going to be there between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m., what do you believe that the consumer hears? The consumer immediately hears, we're going to be there at 8 a.m. They expect that that window is really 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., not 8 to 11, because they're going to be at home waiting for the delivery, or they're going to be waiting for the phone call or the text message about their delivery, and they're anxious and excited about getting their delivery. So what's one of the things that you want to measure? So we talked about measuring completion rate, talked about measurement of, I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, we talked about completion rate, we talked about non-productive deliveries. Now we're going to talk about delivering on time, and the importance of delivering on time and measuring delivering on time. So when you look at, okay, so we have an 8 to 11 time frame, or we have an 8 to 10 time frame. The reality is, what you want to measure is, does the delivery, especially the first couple of deliveries of the day, and I'll explain why, does a delivery arrive within the first 1 hour window of that time frame? Forget about a 2 hour, 3 hour time frame. Is it getting there within the first hour? If it's an 8 to 9 time frame, does it actually get there within the first 1 hour, and in the first delivery of the day, within the first 30 minutes of the time frame? So why is that important? Why is it important that not only is the consumer excited and anxious about their delivery, but why is it important that the first delivery of the day, the second delivery of the day, get there within that 30-minute time frame that you've set up internally? Not to the consumer, that you've set up. Okay, so the consumer sees an 8 to 11 time frame, but you're shooting for an 8 to 8:30 time frame, especially on the first 1 or 2 deliveries. The reason is very simple. Studies have been done over the years, okay? And forgive me, but you can tell me any city in the country, because we operated in just about every single one of them, okay? Los Angeles, New York, Miami, Houston, Dallas, Chicago, it doesn't matter, okay? Any city that you're operating in, any environment, regardless of how bad the traffic is, if the first time frame of the day is delivered within the first 15 to 30 minutes, the chances of the rest of the deliveries being on time for the rest of the day go up significantly, which means that if you're getting to your first 2 stops early within the first 30 minutes of the time frame, the chances the delivery team will be on time for the rest of the delivery increases exponentially, as opposed to them being late for their first stop. Okay? We studied it. It's a fact. Other companies have studied it. If you get there within the first 15 to 20 minutes of that time frame, at least within the first 30 minutes, the chances are the delivery team will make it to the rest of their stops on time, other than some catastrophic event where the truck breaks down or something like that. But on a normal delivery day, most likely they will be on time for the rest of their deliveries. So getting the truck out. So we talk about measuring. What time are you getting the delivery teams off the dock? What time are the delivery teams showing up? Are they showing up at 5:30? It's going to take them an hour to load. If you're loading 40 to 50 pieces of furniture on a delivery truck and they're inspecting it, they're loading it carefully, and I don't care whether it's in the box or out of the box, it's going to take you about 45 minutes to an hour to load that truck. So now you're going to figure, okay, everybody has to be on time. They got to be at the dock at 5:30. Now we want them off the dock at 6:30. We want them to their first delivery between 7 and 8 a.m. Okay, and an early delivery time is not going to scare a consumer. They're okay with that. Okay, as long as you tell them in advance that it's a 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. window. So, excuse me. So now you get the delivery teams there on time. You get them loaded out on time. You get them on the road. And when a delivery team leaves a dock, and I wish this was more interactive because I do better that way. But when a delivery team leaves the dock, what's the first thing that they do? The first thing that they do is not go directly to Mrs. Jones' house. The first thing that they do, and by the way, we've tried to change this behavior for 85 years and it never worked. The first thing that they do is they go to the local gas station, they go get their diesel fuel for the morning, they get their egg sandwich, their coffee, and they kibutz with the other drivers for about 20 minutes. Okay? They talk to the other drivers, they fool around, they do whatever they're going to do. So the reality is now you have a 90-minute time frame in which to get the drivers there on time, the truck's loaded, and make sure that there's no issues with the furniture that have to be fixed that morning, the morning of delivery. Okay, and we're going to talk about the pre-inspection process, and then get them on the road by 6:30 so that they can spend another 30 minutes getting breakfast and coffee and whatever they're going to do, diesel fuel, and then really get them on the road by 7 a.m. And if you want them an hour away from their first stop, that means at 7 a.m. they're rolling out to their first stop, which is going to be an 8 a.m. time frame. So, and it sounds complicated, but it's really not. And my question would be, if I was your delivery manager, or you hired Cory or hired JB or hired me to run your delivery operation, my question for you would be, well, what time do your drivers leave in the morning to get going? Well, they leave at 6:30 in the morning. No, they don't. They leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. Trust me. And I can go down to the local gas station and prove it. So they're really, even if they get there at 5:30, they're really not on the road till 7 a.m. So there's 90 minutes you need to build into your measurement of what time that they're leaving on that dock. And that should be built into your software, by the way. Okay? The other thing that you want to look at during the day is that a driver is not going to work for 12 straight hours. They're going to take a break. They're going to take a lunch break. They're going to take a few minutes to eat a sandwich. They're going to do that. That has to be built into your time frames as well. So, building a 1 hour cushion into your time frame so a driver can stop and get a cup of coffee during the day, use the restroom, grab lunch, and instead of trying to squeeze 15 deliveries onto a truck, trying to make sure that, hey, okay, realistically, we can do 12 or 13 deliveries, and here's how we're going to spread the day out. It sounds like you're being less productive, but in reality, you're going to be better off. Less chance of accidents, less chance of drivers rushing, less chance of product mishandling. You should see an increase in your completion rate. There's a cascading effect that will occur if you're routing correctly and giving the drivers an adequate amount of time to prepare for their day. So, excuse me. So that's what you want to measure when you're measuring your on-time performance. It really starts from the delivery on what time do the drivers show up, what time do they load out, what time are they actually realistically on the road, and how much of a cushion are you building in there with your delivery day? Okay, what kind of cushion do you have in there? Because something's going to go wrong, number one, and we all know that. Okay, one of the stops, something's going to go wrong, number one, and number two, these gentlemen, these men mostly who deliver need a break. They need 30 minutes to run to McDonald's and grab a hamburger, just like you need 30 minutes to go to McDonald's and grab a hamburger and get your lunch during the day when you're working. Okay, so let's not assume that if they're out there for 12 hours, they're outside for 12 hours delivering straight through the day, because that's not true and it's not fair. Okay, so we got to make sure that we're building a break in for them, just like we would take a break throughout our own day. So now now you're moving on to you've measured your completion rate, your non-productive delivery rate, or your incompletes. You're measuring your on-time performance. So what's the next aspect of measurement that is critical? The next aspect is your customer feedback. And this is everything that I've talked about up to this point, except for product handling, which we're going to get into, goes into customer feedback. If a driver leaves a home, and you can imagine that the typical delivery is somewhere between about 15 to 20 minutes, and you should be measuring that, by the way. You should measure exactly how much time the driver has been in the home for the set that they're delivering. And that should be built into your delivery program so that you know that an experienced driver can deliver your, a Vaughn Bassett bedroom set, 5-piece bedroom set in 17 minutes. You should know that. You should know that down to the minute, that a typical delivery for a certain type of product is going to take a certain amount of time, and that should be built into the algorithms of your delivery software. Okay, so a sofa and a love seat, that might be a 16-minute delivery. A bedroom set might be a 20-minute delivery. So you got to look at every aspect of what you're doing when you're delivering, and you have to look at every minute that's being spent in the home. And again, you don't have to guess at it. Good software will actually help you measure everything that you're doing. Good software will actually do it for you. You don't need to guess at it. When they get to the home, they will press a button that they've arrived. When they leave a home, they will press a button that they've left. And then you'll be able to know exactly, based on the product they're delivering, how much time that product took. Okay? The next part is, when we talk about product handling, okay, the next measurement of customer survey, when we talk about product handling, are your drivers, do they have the education and information to deliver that product successfully? So we're going to get into a little bit more detail about that. But that's going to also help you, because if they know what they're doing, and if they've been trained and educated ahead of time, your outside sales team, your delivery personnel, will be able to deliver something successfully. There's nothing more frustrating than a customer watching a delivery team set up a delivery on a product that they have no idea, they've never seen before, they've never seen it before, and they don't know what they're doing. And the consumer knows this. They're watching this, and they know this. Okay? And now the driver is struggling. Now he's taking more time in the home. Now he's going to be late for the next stop. Now the consumer's dissatisfied, and maybe the product isn't put together correctly. Now you have a cascading effect. Remember, every delivery failure has to be analyzed, and there has to be a root cause analysis done on why that delivery failed. Okay? And there's a multitude of reasons, but it's once you start to do that consistently, you can identify why, and you can turn around and correct the surveys. So everything that you're preparing for delivery is going to be the delivery feedback that you get to a customer. First of all, you should be getting feedback as quickly after the delivery as possible. Okay? The idea of having the customer service associate call as soon as the delivery is completed, once you've been updated, the delivery is completed, call or send a text message within about 15 minutes should be your goal. And why is that important? Why is it important that you want to get the consumer's feedback as soon after the delivery as possible? Because that's when it's going to be the most, the feedback's going to be the most real. It's going to be the customer's feeling. And listen to what I said. I didn't say everything done correctly technically. I said the customer's feeling. How did they feel about the delivery process? Just like you want to know how they felt about the sales process inside the store. How did they feel about the delivery process? Did they feel that their home was respected? Did they feel comfortable? Did the driver do something intentionally or unintentionally to make the consumer feel uncomfortable? Okay? And this now gets into another thing that Cory studied very intensely, and that is they're and they are the receivers of the furniture. Okay? And as talking to the men on the phone, being a male in this industry and trying to understand what a female consumer goes through during a delivery process is that you will never understand. It's not possible. It's impossible for you to understand. Okay? Because the way that the way a female consumer experiences a home delivery, especially since all of us on the phone are in the furniture industry. So we have at least some expectations of what's going to happen, and we're very familiar with the process. The average consumer may only get a furniture delivery once every 5 to 7 years, okay? So they're not used to the process, they're not accustomed to the process, which is why communication is so important during the process. So what does a customer feel when the driver leaves, and how do you measure that? The most important thing is, is good, okay, but if you can, and I know this isn't always realistic, having somebody call the consumer and ask them a series of questions, okay, and even if it's a simple question like, would you recommend us? Bob's Furniture or Rooms to Go or whatever. Would you recommend Rooms to Go furniture on a scale of 1 to 10 based on your delivery experience? If the answer is anything less than an 8, then you can do a follow-up question. But asking them how they feel about the delivery is critical, and I'll give you a very quick story to represent what I mean here. We had a senior vice president of operations who was moving to Daytona Beach, Florida. he had been in the industry for 30 years. Him and his wife had bought furniture from a retailer in the area that our company, Cory or JB Hunt, did not deliver for. So this was another third-party company that was making the delivery. The delivery showed up. The driver and helper got out. They introduced themselves. They were in uniform. The truck was nice and clean. They went in. They brought the living room set in and dining room set, whatever he bought. And the drivers left. They were friendly. They smiled. They were complimentary of the furniture, and they got a nice tip. Our senior vice president of operations gave them a nice tip. When the door shut, he went to his wife, who was standing there during the entire delivery, and said, "Boy, these guys were really good. They did a really good job." And his wife looked at him and said, "I never want them back in my home again." And now this is a guy with 30 years of delivery experience. So he said, "Wait, what do you mean? Well, they did a great job. They set everything up. They were friendly. They smiled. They were communicative. I would say work for us." He said, "They did such a great job." His wife said, and there was, family photographs on the wall, and I just had a photo that was in a cheerleader uniform or something. And she said, "I didn't like that the delivery driver lingered over the photograph for an extra couple of seconds when he looked at the photograph on the wall. It made me feel uncomfortable." Okay? They have never called the company and said anything about the might not have been aware that they made the customer feel uncomfortable. But a female consumer was made to feel uncomfortable in their home by something the delivery team was clear.
Patrick, you are fading in and out, and now we've lost you. Patrick, we cannot hear you. Patrick, you're still not coming in. We've now lost you completely. Patrick.
Caprice, am I back on?
Oh, you're back on right now.
All right. Forgive me.
Okay,
I
so
don't know what happened.
you
It just
finished your
went dead on me.
story. All right. So, and we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay. All right. Well, I knew I was going to do this because I always do it. I always run over. Why don't we do this? The last thing I'll talk about, I think I made my point on measurement. The last thing I'm going to talk about is product handling, and I'm going to be very, very quick about this. There's two trains of thoughts on this. Number one is deliver in the box. When I when I grew up in the industry, we didn't deliver in a box. Everything was open and inspected. That has changed. Discount retailers, Amazon, Wayfair, they deliver in a box. They do a cost-benefit analysis on returns and damages, and they assume that customers will be okay with delivery in a box even if the product is damaged. That is that's really a decision based on the quality of experience the retailer wants the consumer to have. Okay, if I were a high-end retailer, if I was an Ethan Allen or a Crate and Barrel or a Restoration Hardware or something, okay, I would open up everything before it went out. I would inspect it, I would assemble it, and I would deliver it blanket wrapped. Okay, that's how I would do it. That's what we did for many years. If you are a value priced retailer and your average ticket, your average piece per price is $300, and it may not be cost effective for you to have a whole department to open prep and deluxe furniture before it goes out, then you do a cost benefit analysis and you decide whether it's safer and better for you and your consumer to deliver in a box. And sometimes consumers are more willing to forgive you if it's in a box. Okay, if there's damage, if you open the product in front of the consumer and it's in the original factory packing, they may be more willing to forgive you versus delivering something in a blanket, which they may think was coming off your showroom floor or was sold to another customer. Again, it's a philosophical decision that comes down to the way that the cost of doing it and the benefit you believe it has on your brand and to your consumer. So that's really that's in the box delivery versus out of the box delivery. And by the way, I know companies that do both, and they do it very successfully. They do in the box successfully. They do out of the box successful. I know companies that do it all kinds of ways, and they seem to have success. So, there could be a whole other hour discussion just on in the box delivery. But that's really a question that you have to decide: product quality, packaging. When we moved to delivering, selling product out of Southeast Asia, the package quality went way down. It just did. When we were delivering out of North Carolina, manufactured in North Carolina, the product packaging was better. That's my experience. And again, I've been in this business for a long time. So, that's really a philosophical decision for the retailer. I will end it at that. I apologize I didn't get to everything I wanted to get to. If you've been to one of my seminars, I never do, to be honest with you, because I could probably go for 3 hours. But I'll leave it open to Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. You are very passionate. We will now conduct our Q&A, and we just have a couple of minutes. Some questions did come in, but if you do have questions, please submit them, and we will get to as many of them as we can. Patrick, are you ready for the first question?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Great. Okay, Todd had a great question. It says, do you include issues out of the delivery team's control in your first delivery rate? For example, acts of God, customer refusal for like wrong color, something happened at the home that was out of their control. How do you do that in your pricing?
That's a great answer. So in the pricing or in the measurement, you want to look at the delivery performance from.
Oh, we lost you again. Oh, Patrick, we can't hear you. Patrick. Okay. We can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Patrick, where are you? Patrick. Okay. Well, it does look like we are having some technical difficulties and we are running out of time. What I am going to do is I am going to submit all of your questions to Patrick, and he is going to either give you a call or send you some feedback via email. And I thank you all for being here. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. And Patrick, for all of your passion and your knowledge on this subject. I'm sorry we're having some technical difficulties, but please mark your calendar for our next webinar, which is Wednesday, March 18th, and we will be utilizing the merchandising matrix to give your store a lift in sale. Yes. Hello. We are going to wrap it up, and I'm going to submit these questions to you for follow-up, and we're going to get back to everybody that asked a question. We had some really good questions and some very detailed questions. So
Caprice, what I'd like to do, and I apologize, I don't know what's going on this morning. I'm sitting in my living room. I always have service in my living room. I'm connected through my Wi-Fi as well as the 4G. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I've never experienced this before where I just lost service twice, by the way, now. So I want to apologize for that. I didn't mean to interrupt the survey. What I would like to do, Caprice, if it's okay with you, is I'm going to give out my cell phone number. And if anybody would like to call me with a follow-up question directly, they're more than welcome to. Okay? I'm more than happy to discuss it with them and answer any questions that they have. Is that okay?
Great. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, so obviously you got my name, Pat Cory, Cory. My cell phone number is 201-832-1480. And if you want to call me or text me and ask me a question and you want me to call you back or something, I will be happy to help you. And again, I apologize. I'm embarrassed that I'm sitting in my living room and I lost cell phone service twice for no reason. So, Caprice, I apologize.
Not a problem. And just to remind everybody that this has been recorded. And if you did miss something in the beginning or at the end, you will have the recording by this time tomorrow. And if you would like to register for the Merchandising Matrix webinar on March 18th, you can visit our website at myhfa.org, click on the resources tab, and go straight to education. And again, thank you, everyone. Um, and if you do have any questions for Patrick or myself, you can reach Patrick via his cell number or me through our website at myhfa.org. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.